Hi, I'm Laurel Thompson, and I want to take some time here to help give you some ideas for creating a successful practice regimen. And I know that some of you out there may be classical players, maybe fiddlers, maybe somewhere in between. And I think for me, the most important thing about practice is that it's focused and that I'm doing it at a time when I can be at my best. Because if I'm practicing and I have other things on my mind or I'm stressed about something else that I have to be doing, then very likely I'll be practicing bad habits. And that's never something that we want to do. So one thing that I do like to do is sort of like a 10-minute warm-up. Ideally, if I have a day where I can just totally schedule myself as I see fit, I might start in the morning after breakfast with just 10 minutes of warming up and kind of just starting to wrap my head around how I'm feeling in my body that day and what are some of the technical things I might need to focus on. I also, during that first initial 10 minutes, I might be thinking about the last performances I had, maybe if there was something that came up that I want to address. And I think particularly when you are moving into the more intermediate to advanced stages, your practice won't necessarily be just etudes and scales and then moving into repertoire, but it will be more about the technique that you need to polish in order to play those things, either publicly or those things that you need to prepare for a lesson or something like that. So I'll be thinking about these things, and I might start to address those in that 10 minutes, but oftentimes I'm just doing something like a scale or some sort of bowing, maybe just long, smooth bow strokes, and just sort of like, gosh, what's my right arm doing today, or what's my left arm doing today? Just kind of taking check of everything. And then I might go away for a little while. I might go exercise, or I might have to return some emails or write something or something like that. And then I'll come back and I'll do a longer session, which could be anywhere from a half an hour to 2-3 hours. But even when I'm doing those longer stretches, I'm making sure that I'm breaking up what I'm doing into chunks that I can keep focused on. So for instance, I might... one technique I like to do a lot, if I have kind of a range of repertoire that I'm trying to kind of get up to speed, I'll do what I call this Roundrobin technique, where I'll just play through the passages, and sometimes it's not even a full piece or a full passage. It might just be like a little snippet that I've been having trouble with, and I'll play that, and then I'll move on to the next thing and play that, and the next thing, and then when I'm done with that string, I'll go back to the beginning and I'll do it again, and then it keeps it fresh in my mind, and each time I come back to it, I'm building on what I just did, rather than if I practice the same thing for 10, 20, 30 minutes, and then move on to the next thing and never ever touch it again that day. Then I find that the next day when I come back to it, it's almost like I have to start from square one again. So I find that that's really effective, and some of my students and I've gotten emails from my podcast and stuff with people saying that that's been really effective for them. So after, I do that longer stretch of time, I may come back in the evening too. I find particularly kind of after I'm done with my day, I think there's something about my mind can just really relax into what I'm doing, and then I might just kind of have more fun. I might end up composing a song, or just playing for the joy of it and not doing kind of the nitty-gritty work. But generally, all of that stuff for me needs to happen in the morning or the early afternoon. Sometimes it's better after I've gone out for a walk or a run. Other times I just want to dive in because I've got some stuff that really needs to happen. So that's kind of my process. And things that I might be using to get that technique up to snuff. I really like the Schrajek studies. And if you know them, they start off with just single string exercises, and they're really great for finger dexterity and just getting all the fingers moving in sync and in time. They build up through lots of position work and different keys, and I find that they're a really good gauge of kind of how I'm doing in my hand. If I've spent the day before vacuuming the house, my hand might be kind of tense, and that can really help me kind of see where I need to loosen up, and it can help that relaxation happen so that I can be ready to go for the next performance. I also really like etudes, Kreutzer etudes. I will always come back to those. They are great for just the whole body, the whole being, focusing on left-hand stuff, right-hand stuff. When I first went through them as a child, I thought, well, I'm done with that, but then as an adult I found, wow, these are really just treasure troves of technique that it can be really, really helpful. And I mentioned the long, smooth bowing, so I might do that just to take check of my right arm and to check my tone. And, sometimes particularly in performance, we might get a little bit tense. There might be some jittering happening there that might not happen normally. So if that's happened, maybe I've had a little bit of, a tense performance, something went wrong or something, then I might check in the next day and just be like, okay, was that really something that I need to be wary of in my technique, or was that just nerves? I might also go into some other bowing patterns. Say I'm doing something more fancy, détaché, moving quickly into spiccato, a sautier stroke, some sort of ricochet. Then I'll be practicing those, oftentimes just on open strings. Sometimes I'll find repertoire that I can use to focus on those aspects. I'll also sometimes do just like a really broken down shifting exercise, just different positions, first position to third position, first position to fourth position, just kind of wherever I need to be playing, and that might segue into some repertoire that I've been playing where some of those shifts were a little bit sketchy, and I'll focus specifically on those shifts and how to break them down and make them more efficient and smoother and stuff like that. So I think, as you're moving from someone who takes lessons to someone who maybe doesn't have a teacher and you're a professional or a kind of amateur adult musician playing, say, in a community orchestra, one of the best things you can do to help your technique and your playing along is to really focus in on what you need to do, like break down the problem areas down to the lowest common denominator. I had one student who she had no idea what the problem was, and we broke it all the way down to a left hand that was tense and wasn't allowing her to reach her fourth fingers, and so she was having this perpetual intonation issue there, and she was trying to learn vibrato, and vibrato was really narrow and tense, and it's just we needed to break it down to really basic stuff that we think we learned at the very beginning when we first picked up our instrument, but really it needs refinement over the course of your lifetime as a string player. So if you can just find those spots in your music and use those as clues to take you back into your technique and figure out where you need to go next, then you're going to get a lot out of your practice time. And it's not going to be as much about repertoire. It's going to be more about those really specific issues. And if you can do that, then it's really just going to take your playing to the next level. So I hope that helps. And thanks so much for watching, and I hope that this takes you on that journey to a good place.